Jacob Masterson awoke with a scream, locked behind his lips. His body covered in a cold sweat. "Hell's Creek," he mumbled, throwing off his rough blanket before hunkering down by the dying firelight. Overhead, there was a sullen rumble of thunder as the storm approached. Jacob looked up into the cold night sky, his nostrils flaring as he smelt the first whiff of ozone. Standing, he stripped off his soiled clothes and knelt. A few moments later, the skies erupted, and the deluge of rain hit, pounding Jacob's scarred, battered body, washing away the filth of Hell's Creek. For hours he knelt, his muscles cramping, his body tensed, steel, shaking with cold. The pounding rain turned into a stinging hail that swept across the land, driven by the howling wind. "What do you want from me?" Jacob raised his face to the wind. "What the fuck do you want from me?" He jumped to his feet and screamed up at the night sky. "When will it be enough? Ain't I paid my dues? When can I rest?" Suddenly a face flashed across his mind. Following corn-silk hair and blue eyes as deep as the ocean. It was the face of his long-dead wife, Jane. Another image followed the same face, bloody and torn by ragged claw marks. "Don't you dare!" Jacob howled, scrambling for his shooting irons, which hung from a nearby tree. He began to fire them into the sky, his face a rigor of hate. "Don't you fucking dare!" Just then, lightning struck a nearby tree, the noise of thunder booming like the end of the world. Jacob cast his now empty pistols into the dust. "Go on then!" he screamed, shaking his fist at the sky. "How dare you! But you better send me straight to hell, because if I reach those pearly gates, I'm gonna spit right in your eye, you hear me? I don't need to be reminded of my debt to you." And just like that, the rain stopped as quickly as it had begun. The first rays of dawn pierced the veil of night. Exhausted, Jacob fell to his knees, and then onto his back. "I'm sorry, Zane. I should have been there." Slowly he closed his eyes and began to slumber, the warmth of a new day covering him like the very hand of God. Jacob awoke sometime later, the sun high in the sky. With a groan, he staggered to his feet before drinking thirstily from his nearby canteen and slowly getting dressed. He was starting to feel guilty now. It was always like this for him around the anniversary of Jane's death. Still, he had no right to be braying at God like a stubborn mule. The thing was, he did owe God, and perhaps it was a debt that he could never truly repay. For after all, was it not God that had led him to a creature that had so brutally murdered his beloved wife? Was it not God that had shown him the ways of the blessed silver and the cleansing fire? Perhaps, if Jacob had known he'd be signing such a contract with the creature's blood. But Jacob pushed that away. He was no liar, especially to himself. He would have done it all exactly the same. Hell, he would have hunted that vile creature to the ends of the earth and beyond to avenge Jane's death. And if he died and ended up in hell, he would hunt that son of a bitch through the flames of eternal damnation forever. Sighing, he lit up a smoke. Pushing such heavy thoughts away, he saddled up his horse, climbing aboard with a creak of leather. "Go on, get," he said, nudging the big mare forward. But she wouldn't budge. "Come on now, girl," he said, nudging her again with a slight hint of spur, but still she wouldn't move. Okay, Jacob said, a small smile playing across his rugged features. "Reckon you've been having some dreams of your own. Lead the way." He slackened the reins, and immediately she turned in the opposite direction Jacob had been facing and began to amble along. Jacob began to laugh. "Who he heeds wholesome abomination will abide amongst the wise," he intoned, And humility goes before honor. If the big mare heard him, she gave no sign, but picked up her pace. Soon they were flying like the wind, heading towards the Arizona territories and beyond. The journey was a pretty uneventful affair. Jacob spent his time like he always did, the hot days nodding over his saddle, trying to recover from another restless night on the trail. It was on just such a night he tossed and turned, mumbling to himself that the first bout of trouble really started. Jacob was dreaming of a man plagued by the devil, an executioner surrounded by a swirling black aura. In his left hand he held a hell-bound blade that burned with eternal fire. In his right, an endless stream of blood pouring forth, turning to molten lava as it hit the scorching and blackened ground. Then I saw an angel, the man said, turning to face Jacob. Sitting in the sun, with a loud voice he called to all the birds of mid-heaven. Come and gather for the great supper of God, to eat the flesh of kings, captain, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses and their riders. For he has set his mark upon them, the mark of the beast, and they who bear the mark will be cast down, and the birds will gorge upon their ruined flesh. Suddenly the man's mouth shot open, stretching impossibly wide, eating up his face. A mass of ravens issued forth, hundreds, thousands. They screeched as they flew at Jacob, tearing at his skin, gouging out his eyes. Just then a dry twig snapped like a gunshot to Jacob's right, and he flew awake, not sure if he was still dreaming. A man stepped from behind the nearby cactus. His pistol was aimed at Jacob's chest as he entered the firelight's flickering glow. "I got him!" the man cried over his shoulder excitedly. "I got him dead to rights, Henry!" Jacob said nothing, taking in the man's torn and tattered uniform. "Well, that's swell," another man said, emerging from the shadows. This man was larger than his weasel-like friend, all grizzled cheeks and bulging belly. In his meaty arms he carried a double-barrel shotgun. "Don't recall any battles going on around these parts," Jacob said, sitting up, slowly making sure to keep his hands well away from his pistol belt. "Nope," the big man grinned. "And that's just the way we like it, ain't it, Patrick?" he said, glancing over at the other man before turning his attention back to Jacob. "Seems to me these southern boys don't know when to quit, so me and old Patrick here gave ourselves an honorable discharge." The other man yee-hawed at that, but the big man didn't even cut a smile. "So you're deserters then?" Jacob spat into the dirt. "Let me guess. You're just heading home, all righteous like, to tend your crops." The big man laughed at this. "Hell no! Farming's too much like hard work. Me and Patrick, we find taking other people's things a damn sight easier. Even more so when they're dead. So," he said, leveling the shotgun at Jacob's face, "Viva con Dios, stranger." Jacob suddenly burst into an uproarious laughter, catching the big man by surprise. "What the hell are you laughing at?" he asked again. "Sorry," Jacob said, wiping pretend tears from his eyes. "When you stepped out of the shadows, or in that Union uniform, I nearly shit my britches. Thought the whole damn Union army had come for me on account of that cash box I stole." "Cash box?" the other man said quickly, his eyes beginning to sparkle. "And what cash box would that be?" "Don't mind if I stand by you," Jacob said, not waiting for an answer, as he clambered to his feet, his hands raised. Big man saw the gleaming pistol at Jacob's hip and pulled back both hammers of his shotgun. "Lose them pistols, my friend." "No problem. No problem at all," Jacob said, slowly undoing his gun belt and letting it fall at his feet. "Never was too damn good with those smoke wagons anyway. I'm just a thief. My partner who likes to do the killing," he said quickly, glancing over to the other man's shoulder. With a hiss, the big man turned, but only for a second before seeing the ruse for what it was. A simple distraction. But a second was all the time that Jacob needed. With a cry, he threw himself down, drawing his pistols as he landed in the hard dirt. The weasel-looking fella, the one the big man had called Patrick, cried out a warning, firing into the dust all around Jacob, but Jacob ignored him. The other man was now swiveling back around, his face contorted with cheated rage. Jacob took careful aim, bullets flying all around him, and squeezed off a single shot. blowing the top of the man's head off in a welter of blood, brains, and bone. The skinny man's pistols now clicked empty, and with a cry he cast them down and took off running in great clumsy strides. Cursing, Jacob rolled to his feet, his eyes narrowing at the figure merged with the darkness. "Oh, no you don't, friend," he said, leveling his pistol, which barked off a single shot. There was a cry of pain, and a heavy thud as Jacob's shot found its target. Then there came a loud wailing from the shadows. "Shit," Jacob cursed, snatching up a burning brand from the fire, before stalking into the darkness. He found the weasel-faced man crawling on his belly, leaving a thick trail of blood in the sand. At the sound of Jacob's approach, he flopped over on his back, his hands desperately trying to hold on to his steaming guts. "Please, mister," he sobbed, blood frothing on his lips. "Please don't kill me." Jacob took a look at the grisly wound. "Reckon I already killed you, partner. Best to ease you off on your way." "Wait!" the man screamed. I gotta get right with God first." "All right, friend," Jacob said sourly. "Make it quick. I haven't got all night." The man closed his eyes and began to mumble a quick prayer. Then, when he hit Amen, Jacob pulled the trigger and walked away. A few minutes later, he was sound asleep. In the distance, a coyote howled, and cold stars shone down with an idiot indifference. Apart from that brief interlude, the rest of the journey was blessedly free of trouble. Jacob spent the day reading from his Bible and letting his God-struck horse lead the way. It was on the fourth day, just as they crested a large hill, that Jacob heard the sound of voices raised in anger. Stowing his Bible, he urged the big mare forward until he could see more clearly into the valley below. There was a town nestled in the valley, one of those border towns, all squat white buildings and straw-covered streets. But it was not the town that drew Jacob's attention. There was a small cemetery and the men arguing just outside its leaning gates. "Get on," he said, nudging his horse forward. "Let's go see what the commotion's all about." Just as Jacob drew closer, he saw that there were 5 people in it. 3 men stood stoically outside the cemetery. The one in the middle seemed to be some kind of preacher. The 2 by his side, burly-looking cowpokes, both heavily armed. "You ain't burying your bastard in here," the preacher cursed at the 2 others. A man and a woman, both shabbily dressed. The woman held a small bundle clasped tightly in her chest and was openly weeping, great tears running tracks down her grimy face. The man with her was tall, with jet black hair tightly braided down his back. He wore a buckskin jacket, which hung loosely on his skinny frame. "Morning," Jacob said, reining in his horse before him. "What seems to be the problem?" "Be about your business," the preacher hissed at him. "I reckon not," Jacob said, easing himself off his saddle. "You heard the Reverend," one of the other men said, cocking his rifle. "Be on your way, stranger." Jacob ignored him, his eyes drifting into the Reverend. The silence drew out until at last, with an irritable sigh, the Reverend spoke up. "These 2, he said, nodding towards the now silent couple, "want to bury their bastard child in the town cemetery, and I ain't having it." "Oh," Jacob said. "And why is that?" "Are you goddamn blind?" the Reverend cursed. "Look at him. He's a heathen savage if ever I saw one. She is an inbred hillbilly child from the mountains. Their bastard wasn't even baptized. No way they're burying their offspring with the rest of these good Christian folks." "And what do you have to say about all this?" Jacob said, turning towards the tall, swarthy-looking man. "These lands once belonged to my people," he replied in a deep, rumbling voice. "That was before the white man stole it from us. The ground here is sacred. My ancestors still walk in these places, and I would rest my boy amongst them." Jacob nodded and turned to the girl. "That your boy, ma'am?" he said, nodding at the small bundle she held tight to her chest. "Yes," she said, her voice hitching. "His name is Solomon." Gently, she removed the burial shroud from the boy's face, revealing the delicate features within. "Good-looking boy, ma'am," Jacob said, tipping his hat solemnly. "Looks like you both done yourselves proud." The girl smiled at that and covered the boy back up, rocking him gently back and forth. Sighing, Jacob turned back to the enraged Reverend and threw back his dusty coat, revealing the gleaming pistols beneath. "Let him pass," he said, spitting into the dirt by the Reverend's feet. "Looks like they got themselves some burying to do." "Oh, screw this," the man to Jacob's right growled, raising his rifle. Jacob drew his gun in almost supernatural speed. A shot rang out and the man screamed, dropping his rifle, 2 of his 5 fingers missing. The other man to Jacob's left let out a cry and fumbled for his gun, but Jacob closed the distance between them in 2 angry strides. The smoking barrel pressed hard against the other man's forehead. "I set the mark of Cain upon you," he said, grinding the hot barrel against the man's flesh. "Now take your partner, get your faces into the wind." He drew the hammer back. "I don't tell you twice." With a cry, the man turned and fled, grabbing up his bleeding partner as they headed back towards town. You can't do that," the shocked Reverend blustered, but Jacob had already seized the man by the collar. "These folks are burying their boy in this here boneyard." "But they ain't no Christians." "It's rich coming from you," Jacob grated, pulling the man forward until their noses were almost touching. "Now you listen good. That boy is being buried here, now, today. I don't give a monkey's fuck if they ain't Christians. Hell, I don't care if the devil shat them both out of his asshole. The boy is being buried, and you're gonna help." He pushed him roughly away. "Call it a penance. Now go grab yourself a shovel, Reverend. If you ain't back here in less than a minute, I'll hunt you down and shoot you for the mangy dog you are." The Reverend looked into Jacob's face and turned tail, heading for a nearby tool shed. Jacob took out an old, tarnished pocket watch from his jacket and began to watch the seconds tick by intently. "You wouldn't really do it, would you?" the swarthy-looking man asked. "Mister," Jacob replied, "I have just about killed everything that walks, runs, or shits upon the face of the earth, at one time or another. One false reverend don't make a lick of difference to me." The big man nodded at this and held out his hand. "My name is Callion. This is my wife, Kate." "Pleasure," Jacob said, shaking the man's hand. "My name's Jacob Masterson." Just then the Reverend returned, puffing and panting, a shovel and a pick thrown over one narrow shoulder. Smiling, Jacob snapped his watch shut. "Well, look at that. With a full 15 seconds left to spare. Now," he said, rapping the barrel of his gun none too gently against the Reverend's ear, "let's find a place to bury this boy." The place ended up being a weed-strewn corner of the cemetery, next to a crumbling wall, far away from the rest of the leaning markers. "This the best you can do, is it?" Jacob asked, eyeing the squirming Reverend angrily. "It is of no matter," Callion interrupted. "The ground here is sacred, and my boy will walk with those who have gone before him." "Okay," Jacob replied. "Looks like you have yourself some digging to do, Reverend." "No," Callion said quickly, snatching up the spade. "It is I who must dig his grave and place the stones upon it." "Okay," Jacob said, "but the good Reverend here is eager to help. Now go find these folks a goodish pile of rocks and be goddamn quick about it." The whole thing took just over 2 hours. When the last stone was laid, Callion sang songs and muttered prayers in a musical language Jacob couldn't understand, his silent wife by his side. When he had finished, they both thanked Jacob profusely for his help, then walked away, leaving only Jacob and the Reverend behind. "Let's take a walk," Jacob said, heading for his horse, before mounting up and looking down at the other man. "Now listen, and listen good, Reverend. The God I believe in don't give no mind to the color of a man's skin, nor does he care what name a people care to give him. That's what's in a man's heart that matters, and your heart filled with hate. Hell, that savage, as you called him, makes 10 of you false priests. I'm leaving now. I may have cause to come back this way, maybe a week from now, maybe a month, even a year. I promise you this. If that boy's grave has been disturbed in any way, if I find a rock who's out of place, I'll plant you in the ground right beside him. Tell me you're hearing me. Yes, the Reverend stammered. No one will touch it. I give you my word. Your word ain't worth a fart in the wind, Jacob said, nudging the mare forward. But I'll take it anyway. That said, he rode away, heading towards town. Jacob, however, didn't get very far. He rode through town, right to the very outskirts, lost in his own thoughts when his horse suddenly stopped dead, almost throwing him from the saddle. What in God's name are you doing? Jacob asked the now silent horse. Come on, get where we're going, he said, pulling on the reins. But the horse only tossed her head, pawing at the ground. Now there was a growing dread swirling in the pit of Jacob's stomach. Here? He said, exasperated. This is the place you've been taking me all along? This place where we're already made such good friends? Oh, shit, he said, clambering from his saddle. Could have warned me. Jacob grabbed up his rifle, strapping it across his back before lighting up a smoke as he really looked down at the town for the first time. The place was like any other border town he'd frequented before. All small, flaking white buildings with timber roofs. The road was nothing more than hand-packed sand. And the people, for the most part, were a mix of Mexicans and white Europeans. From across the dust-covered road came the ragtag sound of a piano, the deep roar of brutish male laughter, and the high-pitched giggle of easy women. Jacob smiled, heading for the bat-wing doors of the saloon, wanting nothing more than a cold beer and some goddamn shade, when a booming voice stopped him in his tracks. You there, stranger, a voice said, drawing closer. Jacob turned in its direction, seeing a large man step down from the porch of an office building with a gaudy sign reading Stapleton and Sons Railway. Behind him were 3 other men coming on fast. Shit, Jacob mumbled, recognizing one of the men from his confrontation back at the cemetery. Maxwell, the big man said, holding out his hand as he approached, looking hot and uncomfortable in his ill-fitting suit. Jonas Maxwell, I believe you and I have some business, stranger. That's so, Jacob said, ignoring the offered hand. And what business would that be? Assault? And intended murder for a start, the man called Jonah said with a large, shit-eating grin, revealing more than a few golden teeth. You assaulted one of my men. In fact, you assaulted 2 of them. Good old Carrion is with the doc right now, but luckily, if that silly old fool can save his hand, and if he picks up some kind of infection, then I guess you're going to hang, partner. That's right, Jacob said, crushing his smoke underfoot. You going to be the one to try and put a rope around my neck, mister? Not me, Jonah laughed. I am more the management game, and unfortunately the sheriff passed away not long ago. Things are real tense around here at the moment. Don't reckon it would take me much time to whip up a hanging party. 2 more men had now left the railway office and stood leaning casually against its timber frame, their hands suspiciously close to their guns, their eyes watchful. So what do you want from me? Jacob said, his eyes trying hard to watch everyone at once. What makes you think I want anything? Jacob replied, his grin growing wider. Let's cut the bullshit, friend, Jacob said, his eyes stopping their endless roaming and fixating on Jonah's face. There was a coldness in him now. It seemed to flow from his heart, covering his entire body. His heart slowed and his hands became rock steady, and it seemed that the whole world took on a bright clarity. If Jacob was going to die today, he was going to take more than one of these fellas to hell with him. What did you say? The big man growled. You're in no position to be asking questions or making demands. You're outgunned, son. My boys tell me you're fast. Carrion said he ain't ever seen anything like it, but that boy's prone to exaggeration and nerves. And I ain't. One word from me and you're gonna have more holes in you than a Swiss cheese. Alright. You die first. I ain't too sure what happens next, but I can damn well guarantee I'm fast enough to take you with me. To Jacob's surprise, the railwayman let out a bellow of laughter. Looks like we have a Mexican standoff then. Lucky for you. I don't want to shoot you. I want to offer you a job. What kind of job? Jacob asked, still very much on guard. A one that pays a lot of money. And if I say no? Then, Jonah said, his eyes growing steely. Guess there's going to be some shooting. And it ain't about those boys you shot up. It's about saving face. The railway owns this town, friend. I know this town, and I won't let some bushwhacker from the desert walk all over me. And you make up your mind. Step into my office, have a nice cold drink. And hear my proposition. Besides, there are kids in the street. We wouldn't want a stray bullet to cut one of them down, would we? Jacob sighed, knowing he was trapped. Okay, then. Lead the way. Well, all right, then, Jonah said, leaving his men away and heading back to the office, Jacob in tow. Glad to see you're a man of sense, Mr. Masterson, Jacob said as they entered the building. Name's Jacob Masterson. The building was dark and cold, all shiny leather and brass fittings. The air smelled of fine cigars and broken promises. Take a seat, Jonah said, waving towards an expansive leather chair at the opposite side of his large desk. Drink? Sure, Jacob said, sitting down. Whiskey. What else? Jonah laughed, pouring a generous helping from a crystal decanter before sitting down and sliding Jacob's drink across to him. So I guess you're wondering what all this is about. Jacob said nothing but sipped his drink, enjoying the fine whiskey. Not a man of many words, are you? Jonah scowled, throwing back his drink and pouring himself another. He didn't offer Jacob a top-up. Well, that's fine by me. My daddy always said, a man is born with 2 ears, 2 eyes, and only 1 mouth. You should always use the first 2 more than the other. Jacob nodded at this. Sounds like a wise man. Hell no! He was a drunken asshole. But let me get to the point here. I need a job doing. And I'm willing to pay in gold to get it done. Stapleton & Son have been given a contract to finish up the railway in these here parts. In fact, things were coming along nicely. But we had a few stubborn sheep farmers to contend with, but let's say we came to an agreement. You pay them in gold too? Jacob smirked. The other man ignored this. We came to a small cliff. Nothing more than a big pile of rocks, really, so we followed normal procedures and tried to blow the hell out of it. But our blasting uncovered something. When we cleared away the rubble, sticking out of the earth was some kind of stonework, covered in strange pictures, serpents, wolves, that kind of thing. A few days later, this English fella turns up from across the border, where he's been working on a dig site. He took one look at that strange writing and nearly crapped his britches. Got himself some fancy court order from one of his posh friends and damn well shut us down. I don't understand all that fancy paperwork, but our lawyers say it's all legal-like. Next thing I know, he steals half my workers and begins digging. I figured he'd just find a few old stones, be on his way, but that's not how it went down. He found more. In fact, damn well uncovered some kind of pyramid down there. Hell, you should have seen the commotion he kicked up then. Something about how those old Aztecs never built anything this far north of the border. How it was once-in-a-lifetime finds to change historical perspectives. Damn fool was nearly frothing at the mouth. So what's all this have to do with me? Jacob asked, becoming impatient. Simple, Jonah said, lighting up a cigar and eyeing Jacob through the smoke. I want you to blow it up. You want what? Jacob said, feeling the real sparks of anger. Just like I said. I want you to blow the hell out of it. And there's a lot of dynamite sitting around up there. When this little accident happens, me and the boys will be in the local saloon, sitting right where everyone can see us. Nothing more than an accident. Boom goes the ruins, and on goes the railroad. Of course, you can't do it right away. A few people saw you come in here. Let's let's give it a week. You can stay at the local boarding house. Till then, I'll even pay for your room and board," he said, tossing Jacob a large purse. "That asshole Englishman is living there at the moment, although they say he has come down with some kind of illness. Save us all a lot of trouble if he up and dies. So, what do you say, Mr. Masterson? Are you in?"
"Sure,"
Jacob said, scooping up the cash.
"But I hope we're talking a lot of gold for such a big job."
"You'll be taken care of just fine." The other man grinned as Jacob stood. "I'll send a message to you the night that we want it done. Till then, eat, sleep, be merry. The local saloon has a few whores. They're ugly as sin and twice as old, but they'll do in a pinch." "So long, Jacob," he said, dragging some papers across his desk. Jacob knew a dismissal when he saw one, and up and left, squinting at the bright sunshine as he went down the steps and into the street. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and it is currently September, which means that we're getting dangerously close to Halloween. For those of you guys who are following me here on YouTube, thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button and the bell so that you don't miss out on the Halloween countdown. And for those of you who are listening on Spotify or anywhere that the podcast is listed, hey, thank you for subscribing to me there. If you guys missed out on it last year, I actually host a horror convention that is one that you are all able to attend. Assuming that you have a computer of some kind. It's free to be able to join, it's free to be able to hang out, and free to come to all the panels. Also, if you are a horror creator or horror artist, it's free to participate. Check out horrorconvr.com for more information and to be able to join our Discord. And like always, I want to give a very big special thank you to everybody who supports me out on Patreon, patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. You guys, as always, are the real MVPs. And I'm talking about you specifically, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Brian Ace, Bobby Karman, Stephanie Butler, Tristain Pelton, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, Reaper61167, Alex the Sandwich, Darth Miver, Micah Ortiz, Satanic Aries, Ness69420, aisodoehtraed, Nessie, BardoHawk764, Ferb, Harley, Madam Skullbunny, Sashi Sazaku, at grizzly_olsen.pro, Kayden the Spooky Boy, My Body Sounds Like Rice Krispies, Ashwood, Lord of the Weebs, Jay, Miss Exandra, Mr. Unsettling Spaghetti, Suji Campbell, Stricken, Azarine Fox, Fried Chicken 12, James Bruce, Freddy Krueger, Ty Nanny, Michael Scarborough, Infernal One, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Jordan Nels, Hades Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Cryptic Nightmares, Kiwi the Sloth, Tommy Green, Festra Lampshade, Sky Harbor, Nina Smith, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Paulson, Trace Miles, and Corey Kenshin. You guys, and everyone on this list of names that I can't pronounce, and everybody in the description down below, and everyone who supports me on Patreon who doesn't get those things, but also supports, I love all of you. Thank you guys so much. Stick with me, cause Halloween's a-comin', and sweet dreams.